It's a waiver wire Wednesday, and today we're going deep on the waiver wire, looking at quarterbacks, tight ends, wide receivers, and running backs. Yesterday, we went deep looking at the running backs and wide receivers for Tuesday's waiver wire. If you want to look deeper at those positions, check those videos out. But today, we're going over everybody. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're going over the waiver wire every day of the week. We're doing deep dives on the trending players with the You Need series. And on top of that, we're using these videos right here to help you set your lineups. Ric Flair's watching you. Don't disappoint him. Click that button. Stop missing out. Caleb Williams is on waivers on about 50% of leagues on ESPN, and he's trending up. He's starting to look better as a rookie, and he's still a rookie, so there's going to be ups and downs. But one thing you can say about him, he's throwing at least 29 pass attempts per game, if not a lot more, and he's also running it a fair bit, getting you anywhere from 15 to 40 yards rushing. That being said, you're getting a good pass rate, and he's running the ball, and things are trending up for Caleb Williams. Cade Otton is a tight end everybody should look at because he's getting volume in the offense, especially when you got Mike Evans stretching the field. You got Chris Godwin. He is another look for this team. It's going to be up and down like it is for every tight end. And look at the chart here. When you score 7.4 PBR fantasy points on any given Sunday, you're just a few points away from being a tight end one for the week. So he's a tight end getting enough workload in his offense to give you top end results. And if he misses, he ain't gonna miss by much. JuJu Smith-Schuster's a wide receiver everybody's looking at right now. Ran a 68.2 route participation rate, but was getting a lot of targets over the middle, was getting a lot of workload in this game. 7 catches, 120 yards, getting yards after the catch. And everybody wants players off the Chiefs. It's a very efficient, explosive offense. And JuJu Smith-Schuster could be the guy going down the stretch. Tyrone Tracy should be picked up. I should not be talking about him. You guys should have listened to me last week and just stashed him. We were talking about him as a stash this whole season. He's got upside with the speed, and it's very ambiguous with this Giants team. This Giants team is just ambiguous in general. So just looking at Tracy right now, he blew up last week getting touches, and even if he's sharing the workload, he still has the potential to blow up on any given week with Singletary because of that size-adjusted athleticism. Trevor Lawrence is another quarterback, and he's not a guy that you're really loving or going over the moon for, but he's giving you stable production. Had his best week in week 5. So in games where it's projected to be a shootout, you might be looking at him for that contest. Brenton Strange is a tight end you need to look at off the Jaguars because he's getting a lot of work. He's 9th among tight ends in the last 4 weeks in routes ran. He's also top 10 in fantasy production among tight ends. He's also productive among tight ends. 3 out of the last 4 weeks, he's been a tight end 1. It doesn't take much to be a tight end 1 for a tight end, but he was hitting those markers. That being said, Tank Bigsby's been the guy in the offense for the Jaguars, running the ball up the gut, running through faces, scoring touchdowns. Tank Bigsby might be stealing more workload out of this backfield as the season goes on. He's not running a lot of routes. That's the big thing to note about his prospect profile. We did a deep dive on him earlier today, but Tank Bigsby's getting more work. He's getting more opportunity, and you're going to have to throw some chips on him and throw him in some lineups here and there as bye weeks come up. Wan'Dale Robinson's getting targets. I should not be talking about him right now. He should have been a big pickup last week, but again, just in case, because a lot of people are noting him for waiver wire content, so I'm just throwing him out there. He's getting targets. He's getting opportunity. That could lead to fantasy production. They're not deep targets, so he could be up and down. But with Malik Neighbors there, it's either Malik Neighbors or Wan'Dale Robinson in the passing game, depending on what's going on with that play. But Daniel Jones, though, you got an underneath wide receiver, and you got Malik Neighbors. He's doing what I told him to do all along in the offseason. Just spam Malik Neighbors, and it's helping him out, especially for fantasy production. He's giving you up and down production right now, which is okay. And he's a QB1 in 2 weeks of the year and is a high-end QB2 in most weeks. Taysom Hill might be back sooner than later from this injury, and he leads all tight ends with 77 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. He's just a Konami code player, and if you're hurting at tight end, you don't know what to do. Like always, Taysom Hill is a guy to look at. Josh Downs is getting targets in this offense. He's good with Flacco, and he's commanding a large target share with a 27% target share, running on 70% of the routes. He's getting volume, and he's scoring fantasy points with 45 points scored in the last 2 weeks. He's a wide receiver to get off waivers. Should already been picked up, though. Rico Dowdle's picked up in a lot of leagues, but he's also sitting on waivers in a lot of leagues in general as well. He's starting to get more work. He looked very crisp against the Steelers. He looked very explosive. It's probably going to be up and down due to the Cowboys. This team's very ambiguous. But again, when you're looking at running backs off the waiver wire, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be ambiguous and genuine, and you're just going to have to play the matchups with them. Jalen Tolbert, he's kind of ambiguous, but he's lining up for more workload with Brandon Cooks to the IR, and he's also seeing targets. He's been seeing up and down productivity throughout the season. 15 points in week 2, 14 in week 3, 23 in week 5, and that's because games go a certain way, and when it goes his way in that game script, he's going to get targets. He gets targets deep downfield. He's a good wide receiver to look at off the waiver wire this week. Jalen Wright is the stash play to get this week. He's a stash play that you're rostering to hope he goes nuclear. Devin Achane suffered a concussion, but the Dolphins are on bye. Achane should be back sooner than later. Wright's starting to see more touches and opportunities with his 4.3 speed and how often he's hitting 10 plus, 15 plus, 20 plus miles per hour on his runs. This is a guy that you gamble with here and there on the back end of your bench to see what happens, because there's immense upside here. Jalen Polk's getting immense upside with Drake May. He's a gamble wide receiver, round 2 draft pick who can get downfield, make plays happen, who has good rapport with Drake May from training camp. You want to see what happens with this? Here you go. Pick him up, stash, see what you can do. Antonio Gibson is just a stash running back, but he's still a top tier stash running back. We've been telling you to stash him throughout the season. He pushed Ramondre Stevenson to the point he was losing carries, and they're talking about benching him. Antonio Gibson's good at catching the ball in the backfield. They're using him in the passing game. If Stevenson goes down with an injury, he's seeing 20 plus opportunities per game until further notice. So he's a good stash due to that point, and touches and opportunities lead to fantasy production. And look at this. Week 2, 16 points. Week 4, 11. Week 5, 13. Off waiver wire. That's good to have. And you're looking at the Rams wide receiver. I call this the carousel effect. I say this in a lot of videos, but a lot of people get confused. So when you got 3 wide receivers getting a lot of opportunity and the ball's just spraying around and it's kind of willy-nilly in the offense, any wide receiver in the offense can get it. Some carousel effects are different than others, but we're seeing Jordan Whittington emerge over the last few weeks, getting a lot of targets and opportunities. Tutu Atwell's very explosive. He's been the guy that's really putting up the yardage totals on the team. Demarcus Robinson scored a touchdown last week. He's running a lot of routes. He gets a lot of the deeper routes. So there's going to be games where he splashes. Pick up the one you like and just roll with it and work your lineups. Ty Chandler has some upside, and Aaron Jones went down with an injury. The Vikings are on bye, but still, he's been a stash this whole season. 4.3 speed, looked good last year, getting more opportunities. He had some runs called back last year. I've noted it in like 4 videos this week already, that if those runs didn't get called back due to penalty from the offensive line, he would have had a better yardage total. People would be talking him up a little bit more, but that 4.3 speed gives him upside on any given carry. Trey Tucker, 5 targets in this matchup, 14% target share. What I said in his unique video last week is he's a wide receiver that's going to get 5+ targets per game, and you can play the matchups with, and that's something you're going to like. You're not going to like the Denver matchup. Nobody likes the Denver matchup. It's always going to be low scoring, slow pace. You got another matchup here against Pittsburgh that could be nasty, or could be advantageous due to how they play wide receivers. But Trey Tucker, I look for him to get 5+ targets a game going forward, and you may want that, you may not, but he does have upside week to week. Blake Corum is the ultimate stash play. He should be rostered in every league, but he's not rostered in every league. He saw 5 carries last week. He looked explosive. He looked good. He is the contingent plan behind Kyren Williams. Ronnie Rivers is there. People like Ronnie Rivers. He's very dependable. Blake Corum is a better talent. Blake Corum's talent dances around Ronnie Rivers. Blake Corum has the upside to be an RB1 to finish the year if Kyren Williams goes down. Remember David Johnson back in the day during his rookie year? He was the stash. Everybody was trying to hold. Then in the last few weeks of the season, bam, he hits. We're hoping one of these stash plays do that for you, and you just kill everybody in the playoffs. Xavier Hutchinson, Nico Collins to the IR. Hutchinson ran 28 routes with him out, seeing opportunities, and these opportunities are going to be downfield. Lanky wide receiver, did that at Iowa State, has upside. A lot of people project him to get drafted a lot higher. It was a good wide receiver class that was very deep, but this is a very good wide receiver that's very sneaky that could emerge with more targets than expected. He saw 3 of them last week against good competition in his own offense. That being said, this could be a sneaky play to look at going into week 6 and beyond. Now we're looking at Bucky Irvin again. He's getting touches. He's getting opportunity. He's the guy he kind of went out of his backfield, but they're sharing the workload dead nuts even. The one thing to know, he fumbled in this game. About 3 plays later, 2 plays later, whatever it was, they let him back in. They let him touch the ball. They love Bucky Irvin. And the thing is, something happens to White, they're going to want Bucky Irvin. Trey Sermon should be rostered. He was the big pickup last week. If not, pick him up. See if Jonathan Taylor's going to be out longer. It's a rough matchup this week, but you're chasing those touches kind of like we did last week. But you got to see what you can do. But he should be rostered, but I'm throwing him out there just in case. Those are the players we're looking at off the waiver wire. There's other players to look at. We looked at them yesterday and the day before, and there's going to be plenty of you need videos for you to look at on those deep dives to make your decisions. Click that subscribe button on the way out. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.